very pleased that the Formula One is back in Montreal. It's one of the tracks that should always remain because it's fun, it's exciting, there's always good racing, the fans love it. Everybody that comes to the race, they have a great time. It's like going to Monaco. In Europe, it's almost normal to have F1. It's part of Europe, but not in North America. It's the rest of the world coming to visit Montreal. That makes it exciting. The whole world is watching. I had a hero in the past, which was my father, Gilles, who started representing Canada at an international level. Having his first victory here kept building that, and since then, the fans remained. And it's gone through the generations. And in my eyes, my dad was just a champion, and he should win every race. All through my upbringing was always a big part in any conversation on the risk he would take and how it was just a game and how he would push it to an extreme that was higher than everybody else, and there was a lot of pride in that. You know it's going to hurt. That's the main thing, is you know it's going to hurt and there's nothing you can do about it. It was my dad, so he was my hero. It helps to have that feeling when you see everybody else around you reacting like that. It could be other members of your family or friends, or when you travel. It was still alive in the hearts of many, and you're super proud. My dad obviously would love racing in Montreal. He always did. Some tracks are always boring, and some tracks are always exciting. Because there's the long straight lines, it's easy to make mistakes. And when a mistake happens, normally a driver will probably hit something. 1999, the curves were different, and there was a little bit of dust on the inside. And as soon as a car would go too much on the inside, would put dust on the track, and the car following would end up losing grip. There's a lot of us that ends up crashing in exactly the same wall. We're coming off the last chicane. Damon, Michael, myself as well. So all champions. I think that's why it was then called the Wall of Champions. It is the biggest event year after year, and it brings an international crowd. The racing has been amazing. I would love to race here again. That's one race that I would want to win. Everybody's excited it's back.
And Jacques isn't the only one. It's a sellout race weekend here in Montreal, and if Canada's most beloved motorsport son was still with us, I'm sure he'd be over the moon that Formula One has returned to a place where it just feels so at home. The aim for today, to secure pole position at a circuit that requires a decent engine and even better brakes. The aim for tomorrow, well, for the front runners, is to avoid the kind of drama that tainted that trip to Turkey 2 weeks ago.
Park. Webber, Hamilton, Button moves across, but Vettel blocks Hamilton and straight into second place. The two leading cars, Webber and Hamilton. Webber's away. Oh, didn't seem a particularly good move there from Hamilton. Slightly delayed. Webber's out and still in front.
We're back with a 1-2 for Red Bull.
Oh dear, they've come together! Webber and Vettel have come together. Vettel going out, Webber going out. What was going on there? Extraordinary. We've just got drama on the track. Out goes Sebastian Vettel, and Hamilton and Button push on for McLaren.
Look at this. Button fancies a run.
The Button's going through on the inside. It's going to be very, very careful. He's got the line in the last corner. Hamilton's coming back at him, but Button's still there, and he's got the lead. He's coming back on the pit straight, down towards the first corner. Hamilton's got the inside line and retakes. They're still holding it together, and Hamilton's back in front. A few pinch faces there, Paddy Lowe, Martin Whitmarsh.
OK, gentlemen, we need more fuel saving. Fuel is critical, and save the tyres through turn 8.
Save the tyres through turn 8, save fuel, just go slower and slower.
It was the best qualifying of the year for Lewis Hamilton. Now it's his best result of the year. It's the first time win for Lewis Hamilton in 2010, and Jenson Button makes it the McLaren 1-2.
Well, Red Bull and McLaren would have been hoping to leave their troubles on the track in Turkey. However, despite being almost 5,000 miles and 7 time zones away from our last Grand Prix, the question remains, was that moment a turning point in the 2010 season? Well, the long straights, hard-braking zones and slow corners of the circuit Gilles Villeneuve will once again leave no margin for error and keep the pressure on the front runners. After today, we head back to Europe and the port side of Valencia before we return to a reconfigured, faster and more fan-friendly Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. And looking forward to that, but with slightly more pressing concerns such as teammates, tactics and trouble on the track on their minds. David Coulthard and Eddie Jordan are alongside me as ever. And before we get to talking about the racing, David, I've always said you're a national treasure. And now it's been confirmed. David Coulthard, MBE, in the Queen's Birthday Honours List. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. Obviously, very honoured. And I think it's all credit to the platform that Motorsport has given me. Thank you, Eddie. That Motorsport has given me to receive that honour. So, yeah, great day.
And it's been amazing, actually, in the paddock. The reaction from people has taken you slightly aback, hasn't it?
It has indeed. The amount of text messages I've had and people coming up to me, and you know, it's always lovely to see support and recognition for what you've done in the sport, because I think that, you know, when you're a competitive person, you're not looking back, you're always looking forward.
And maybe part of this is for the people who have supported you over the years.
Well, indeed, and of course my parents played a huge part in that. I haven't had a chance to call them yet, so if they're
David,
watching this show, then...
You haven't rung your parents?
No, I'll give them a call after the show.
OK. And anyone else, anyone in Formula One that really springs to mind?
Well, indeed, obviously, Jackie Stewart gave me a great deal of schooling outside of Formula One through the Paul Stewart Racing team. Frank Williams gave me my first opportunity. Ron Dennis, of course, drove for McLaren for 9 seasons. And in the end, Dietrich Mateschitz and Christian Horner, of course. So, great journey, thoroughly enjoyed it, and a big thanks to all.
David, do you think it adds to Jake and ours cred to have you in this little triumphant group here of a trio? And well done. Quite apart from anything, no joking aside. Fantastic achievement, brilliant.
Congratulations from all of us, and I'm sure your gong for services to Vashon isn't far away, Eddie. But let's talk about the racing now. Yeah, I thought you might do. Let's talk about the racing now. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of what actually happened on the track in Turkey very shortly, but what it does mean is that we arrive here, and you can see actually the grandstands are filling up already. They love their Formula One here. It provides great racing. The title battle is really close, and we've got a little bit of controversy as well. It's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, what an amazing season. This is only race 8 of the 4 world champions that are out on grid. 3 of them have actually won a race so far. And the controversy has all been on track. It's about the racing. Obviously, there's been some discussion over the various technologies that have been developed, but largely it's been about what's been going on the racetrack. So I think we're having a sterling season.
And we can see how tight it is there in the Drivers' Championship. But turning our attention towards the Constructors, Eddie, you must have seen so many times over the years, so many teams having their championship seasons derailed by problems within the team. And I guess both McLaren and Red Bull will be well aware of that, won't they?
Well, of course they will. And after what happened at Turkey, it was hugely exciting for us. The punters looking at the race, it was a magic race. But they will also be aware and mindful of what happened at McLaren some years ago, not that long ago, in fact, between Hamilton and Alonso, where they caused mayhem within the team and allowed Ferrari to nip in and win the championship. So that'll be in their back of the mind, but at the same time, I don't think what went on in Turkey was really big enough a problem that they can't handle it, and they will possibly learn by it and move on and win the championship. It's between these two, in fact.
OK, talking of the championship, a quick look at how the Constructors' standing is at the moment. And it's actually the 2 teams at the front that everybody's talking about at the moment. Look at that, just 1 point between McLaren and Red Bull. Ferrari there with 146, and Mercedes Grand Prix, effectively the defending champions, starting to slip back. But they still believe that Red Bull and McLaren can be caught. Now, let's go back 2 weeks to Turkey. It was looking like business as usual. Red Bull were fast, Red Bull picked up pole, Red Bull were leading. In fact, they were looking good for a 1-2 finish. And then lap 40 arrived, leaving us with far more questions than answers.
Up until lap 40, we'd done everything right.
The 2 leading cars, Webber and Hamilton.
We got Mark back out in the lead ahead of Lewis. We managed to jump Lewis at the stop with Sebastian as well.
We're back with a 1-2 for Red Bull.
Until lap 40, everything was looking good. On that back straight, Sebastian managed to take 32 metres out of Mark, which put him into a position where he was alongside and slightly ahead.
I've already passed Mark, and then obviously tried to slowly come back to the right.
It was actually over, pretty quickly, to be honest. In 8 sectors, everything was going fine, and then all of a sudden, things started to change, pretty quickly.
Oh, dear, they've come together. Webber and Vettel have come together. What was going on there? Through goes Jenson Button. Ahead goes Lewis Hamilton.
Right, Sebastian Vettel went right into the side of Mark Webber.
There will probably be a difference of opinion until we go to our graves.
I'm not the kind of guy that pushes all the fault to one guy.
With an incident like that, it's a racing incident. I think it is wrong to say Mark was at fault or Sebastian was at fault.
Obviously at that time I was the leading car, so usually the leader then dictates where to go.
My opinion hasn't changed too much, after the race. You can say whose fault was it? Well, we went down there, it was close, we touched, Seb moved across a bit, okay, that's what happened.
You've got two guys that are going for the lead of the Grand Prix. The last person they want to be beaten by is their teammate, and unfortunately, we all saw the incident. At no point in time was Mark told to either slow down or let Sebastian pass, or vice versa. The rules of engagement, were quite simply that we trusted in the drivers to give each other room and respect.
I think it has been made pretty clear. Obviously there was a lot made up by the press, and those sort of stories are much more interesting to read and to listen to rather than something boring and nice. Everything is shiny.
One of the race engineers, Karen Pilbeam, has taken a bit of flack recently, Mark's engineer. He had no instruction to tell Mark to move out of the way. That is 100% clear.
No, he didn't get any instructions to tell me to move over. You can put 2 and 2 together and get 100, but there wasn't a huge amount to it, to be honest.
Absolutely not. I mean, our priority is that we want to see a Red Bull car win. We don't care if it's a Mark Webber victory or a Sebastian Vettel victory.
There's no either driver, Mark or myself, being favoured in any way.
It's something that everyone should get over. It is something, I wouldn't stay at the team if I wasn't, fair that, I was getting a fair crack at it.
Mark knows the situation internally. He knows how popular he is within the team. He's always had a huge amount of backing, from the team when he had his accident with his leg, being put in a pin. There was never any question of looking at a replacement driver or anything like that.
I'm absolutely comfortable in this team. They give me the best chance possible to go out there week in, week out. The guys prepare the cars exactly the same. And of course, Helmut, he brought Sebastian through. He speaks the same language. Of course, there might be a little bit of emotion there, but in terms of, we're not in a position where it was with Michael and Rubens at Ferrari, all those years ago, where you can say, okay, let's just put all our cash on one car. I'm absolutely comfortable with my relationship with Christian. For us to think that you're going to have a seamless relationship over 5 years and challenging what we're challenging for, of course there's going to be some bumps and speed humps along the way. That's normal. I guarantee you next time it might be a little bit different, of course, how we handle things, but not massively, because, we need to race. The team, we have to take their hat off. All the fans need to take their hat off, because they've got 2 cars out. It's a horrible position for them to, let us, get the boxing gloves on, but that's what everyone wants. There'd be uproar if we didn't have that either, and there's uproar the other way as well. So, I mean, it's a real fine line.
Fundamentally, it's right to allow the drivers to race each other. I think it'd be wrong as a team, and for Formula One, to dictate after the first corner and say, okay, racing's over between the 2 of you. I don't think, that's not what Red Bull's all about. That's not what I think Formula One should be about.
The most important that you don't get all this into you and into your head. So, you just keep on doing what you were doing before and not trying to be super careful or the other way around, super aggressive.
In the cold light of day, it was a racing accident. Nothing more, nothing less, and I'm sure it won't happen again.
Well, how can Christian be so sure? You've got a team that have refused to apportion blame. You've got 2 drivers that refuse to accept the blame for the incident as well. Surely this can happen at this Grand Prix, the next Grand Prix, any time, can't it?
Yeah, I don't see an issue with not apportioning blame, because sometimes there are such things just as racing incidents. But I think the key word there is, I hope it doesn't happen again, rather than you can be sure. Because in racing, anything can happen. And one of the flaws in the system is that a team will always employ the 2 best drivers they possibly can, want them to go at it to try and be top dog. but inevitably that involves going wheel to wheel at certain points.
Now, you know what goes on behind the scenes at Red Bull. You're still quite involved in the team there. Have they done enough to prevent something like this from happening again, do you think?
Well, the drivers won't want it to happen again because they lost a chance to win that race. And, you know, for both of them, they were losers in that event. So even if they don't say anything to them, their natural competitive instincts will see them want to give each other a bit more room. But if that was Lewis against Mark, or, you know, Sebastian against Jensen, and that had happened, then again they'd both learn from it, and they'd want to give a bit more space next time, because there's no point defending against the indefensible. You know, these cars are not meant for rubbing up against each other. They're very sophisticated but very fragile vehicles.
Okay, now Eddie Jordan, king of the conspiracy theorists, you don't think that we've seen the full picture here, do you?
Well, first of all, Mark, at the very end of the show, he said, let's hope that the people won't be robbed of such opportunities to race and race hard against their own teammates, because that's what I come here to see, and I want that racing. If that's taken from us, which I fear, that this fuel-saving economy business that they're doing, and there are people who are being disingenuous here. There are team orders happening, every team on this pit lane under a different guise. That's my belief. So let's come back to the situation. I find it intolerable that Red Bull has not called to question Vettel's actions. You can't possibly say that Mark Webber did anything wrong, did absolutely nothing wrong. The problem is that Vettel moved over on him. He wasn't fully past the car like what he said he was, and he said he moved over gently. He didn't move over gently. There was a failure. And why not just say Vettel made a mistake?
I think, actually, if I can just pick up on something Eddie mentioned there, I think the key to this is this fuel-saving mode that you talk about. Maybe a better rule would be to give them a certain level of fuel, and you're not allowed to adjust your engine performance during the race. Then we would know we're seeing an absolute flat-out race from beginning to end. A true race. All of this starting the race with, you know, enough fuel to get you to your last pit stop, and then you have to back off towards the end. That's a bit of a flaw in the system as far as I'm concerned, but the teams inevitably do it because you don't want to carry the extra fuel and the weight penalty, and historically we don't see overtaking in Formula 1, so if you can be in the lead at your last pit stop, you'll carry that to the checkered flag.
Absolutely, David, smack on, but it gets worse. The driver who's in front at the time of this, at the pit stop, is given the protection that he knows he can't be overtaken. How can that be racing? It's flawed.
Do you think in some ways Mark Webber will be pleased that this kind of undercurrent that people think Sebastian is favoured in that team is now totally out there? It's in the open. It's actually under the spotlight. Will Mark be pleased about that, do you think?
I think so, and I think in many ways, if I look back on my career at McLaren, it took several years for me to get the comfort that I wasn't dreaming, that, you know, although I completely believe the team gave me equal machinery, did I really believe that I was given this psychological edge? No, I didn't. And when eventually that came out in the open after Melbourne 98, it was actually a weight off my shoulders because it gave me the confidence that I wasn't crazy.
And the one other big point we have to cover here is team orders. Now, since 2002 in particular, when there was a Ferrari incident and Michael Schumacher nipped past Rubens Barrichello, then allowed Rubens to stand on the top step and everybody booed, team orders have been banned. It's in the regulations. It's in the sporting regulations. We know that it can't happen. We can see it there, actually. There you go, 33.9. Team orders which interfere with a race result are prohibited. 39.1. It's in black and white. David, you raced until very recently. Does it still go on?
Well, I think they should go straight from 39.0 to 39.2 because, of course, it still goes on. The whole nature of Formula 1 in terms of picking tyres, picking strategy, deciding which engine goes to which driver, you know, new development parts. It's a ridiculous rule because this is not just about man against man on a running track or woman against woman on a running track. There's so much more involved in Formula 1. It's a nice notion, but the reality is it just doesn't have a place here. And, you know, it's about getting into the season, allowing the drivers to race openly until one has the better chance of winning the championship. And then the team has to go with that driver. OK, and we're going to hear from some team principals a bit later on. You'll get your chance, don't worry. You will get your chance to put the question to them when they join us a little bit later on. But from battling with your McLaren teammate to sitting frustratedly on the pit wall as two Jordans get rather too friendly on the track, both Eddie, David and Martin know all about the trouble of teammates in Formula 1.
No one wants to be second best.
As soon as those start lights go out, you're racing for yourself.
Rivalries exist in every sport and in every team.
The last two world champions, Hamilton and Button.
Down towards the first corner. Hamilton's got the inside line and retakes. They're still holding it together.
Mark and Sebastian.
Oh, dear, they've come together. Webber and Vettel have come together. What was going on there?
Fernando and Felipe just simmering under the surface.
Not for the first time this year. Alonso has rather seized the initiative.
Schumacher versus the young charger Rosberg at Mercedes.
All or nothing now for Michael Schumacher.
The first point of contact to compare racing drivers is, of course, between teammates in identical equipment. On race day, they're out there by themselves. They want to win for themselves. They are necessarily selfish people. Don't be surprised when they end up on the same piece of tarmac and they don't want to give way.
Mark will be extremely sad about that. Not as sad, I imagine, as the bosses of the team.
Rivalries have always been part of Formula One, always will be. One of the most famous, of course, is Prost versus Senna at McLaren.
This is the opportunity that Senna's looking for, and he's going through. Ouch! Oh my goodness! And that means to say that Prost has won the World Championship.
When I was at McLaren, Mika and I came together, I think 3 times during our 7 seasons as teammates. 96 in Estoril, Austria 99, where worst nightmare, I hit the back of Mika going into turn 2.
Oh, Coulthard and Hakkinen touch!
This is my nightmare scenario, taking my teammate off the start.
And then again later that year in Spa, we touched at the first corner and I went on to win the race, and Mika famously wouldn't speak to me at that time. So I know what it's like being in a team when you've got 2 drivers, nominally both with an equal contract, both with an equal chance to go out and try and win the Grand Prix. But it's all those small little things that make the difference. Psychological edge that you think you start seeing shadows in the back of the garage, you think that your teammate's getting a bit of extra support. If you start to have little doubts in your mind, then it can affect your performance. And you can see that when you've got 2 competitive guys fighting during a season. You can see when one's up, the other one's down, and vice versa. So it does get very intense. And in many ways, the system's flawed having a team with 2 cars, because when one's winning, the other guy's losing, and the racing drivers don't like to lose.
It's absolutely incredible. The 2 Jordans have tripped over each other. It looks like Ralph had a go at him, and they both went off the road.
First of all, are in disbelief. You do not know why they've allowed themselves into that stupid position of taking each other out. It's an anger. You are angry. You're angry at the drivers because you've employed them, and you've employed them to do what is best for the team, and they clearly haven't done so. Well, there's a natural instinct in each and every one of us where one may slightly favour another, but as the team boss and team principal, it is absolutely paramount that you take a down-the-line equal share position. The team is always the number one, never the drivers.
You cannot expect teammates not to race. They both want to win.
Vettel and Webber moving forward, well, they can paper over the cracks and say we're all happy families, but I don't believe it. It's going to rear its head again, guaranteed.
And if Martin Brundle guarantees it, then it's pretty likely to happen. Just give us an idea of what actually goes on behind the scenes in Formula One, David. When you and Mika were going toe-to-toe, how did Ron deal with it inside McLaren?
Well, he'd get us both in his office, and he'd get all the evidence, whether it was video evidence, data from the cars, and he would go through it systematically, giving us both a chance, a bit like a hearing, really. Give us a chance to put forward our point of view. And if you looked at the image of that coming together with Mika and I in '96, remarkably, Mika believed it wasn't completely my fault. The fact that he rammed me, it was exactly an opposite of what I did to him in Austria in '99, where it was completely my fault. And it helps you get inside the mind of a racing driver. At the moment of an incident, and even in the aftermath, they're completely convinced that they are right. And in many ways, he went on to be a champion. Maybe that was the little bit that I was missing, the fact that I could accept blame.
So are you saying when he was wrong, he still wouldn't accept blame?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember asking him once, surely you must be wrong. And he went, no, not that I ever remember.
Amazing, amazing. How did you deal with it, Eddie? Was it like a court case at Jordan headquarters?
Well, it was kind of, first of all, there's a huge sense of anger from the pit lane. It's different when you're a driver. They are pure ego. They just think about themselves and then they think about the team later. The opposite is on the pit wall. You think about the team first, and the drivers are some of those people who are entrusted to bring home the points for you, and you don't try to have favourites out there. So it is a sense of anger. and then the anger must dissipate, and then you have to be logical about it and look at the evidence. And you must be strong, and you must apportion blame, and you must discipline the person, otherwise it'll happen and happen and happen again. And there are fundamentally two very different thoughts about how to go about it, but I think you need to be very strong.
Yeah, well, McLaren are keen for this not to happen again and again. You can see Jensen's car being worked on just behind us at the moment. So Jensen versus Lewis, what really happened on track, and what will the effects be? Well, Ted Kravitz has been investigating, and here's a little teaser of what you can see tomorrow.
Lewis, we need you to save fuel. We need you to save some fuel now. Both cars doing the same.
Careful. Hamilton, he's got the line. He's got the line in the last corner. Hamilton's coming back at him, but Button's still there, and he's got the lead.
At the time, did you feel that Phil was misleading you?
No, I don't think so. I think I wasn't particularly fully understanding of what he meant by it.
Well, you can find out what else we discover tomorrow. You can see Jensen's car here. He'll be going out today, desperately hoping that he can improve on some of the sessions that McLaren have been enjoying this weekend. The tyres are really being punished around here, and in just over half an hour's time, we'll find out just how that affects today's qualifying session. But you would sort of think that teams saying everything's fine here and drivers playing down all of these little set twos on the track is all that we've been talking about this weekend. Well, you'll be wrong. There's loads of news spinning around in the paddock here, and Ted Kravitz has been investigating.
We're not even halfway through the season, but already teams are signing up their drivers for 2011. As we've heard, Mark Webber will stay at Red Bull, but it's just a one-year deal. Sebastian Vettel is on a longer-term contract, believed to be until 2013. And as we exclusively revealed at the last race in Turkey, Ferrari have re-signed Felipe Massa until the end of 2012, even though he was slower than Fernando Alonso for the early part of the season.
For sure, it's not to race which will change what the team thinks about me, and also the opposite. So we don't have the best car on the track, but I trust the team. I trust that we can do a good job. I trust the people who works in every area, and that's what it counts.
David Coulthard's clearly in good company, as Jensen Button received his MBE at Buckingham Palace this week. In their exchange, Her Majesty the Queen revealed a good knowledge of F1 and wished Button good luck for this year's world title, leading to a rather starstruck world champion.
It was nice to have a moment with Her Majesty, and always feels a lot longer than it is. And when you arrive, you think you've got something to say, plan ahead. You arrive, Her Majesty smiles at you, and you just go blank. But she kept it rolling, so it was okay. But yeah, great experience, and it'd be lovely to get the chance to meet her again.
Meantime, McLaren are eyeing their strongest qualifying of the season so far. Their straight-line speed advantage and a new front wing should see them close the gap to Red Bull, but bigger gains are ahead for a new package at Silverstone.
Every now and again you try and put together a bigger package that hopefully bring you half a second or something of that order. So we're ambitious to achieve something like that. We're pushing hard within the company to do it.
Michael Schumacher's used to winning everything in sight, but admits that with his Mercedes car unable to challenge Red Bull and McLaren for top honours, the best he can hope for in qualifying is to stay ahead of the Renault and Ferrari, but says even that won't be easy.
I hope in a way we could establish our position that was like third team position. We sort of can keep that. I'm afraid that Ferrari might be quite strong here. Even Renault could be quite strong here. So I don't see much room to go further forward, but we need to be careful not to go further backwards.
Force India have given the struggling Tonio Liuzzi a new chassis after they found that the new parts they put on his car in Turkey actually made the car go slower.
For Turkey, we brought some development, and something in it wasn't working as it should, and it was creating bigger issue than expected. So we cannot say exactly what it was, but we found out, and for sure was not a good thing to find, but was a good release, because at least we understood the reason why we had this issue.
If you missed the practice sessions on the red button, here's what we learnt. Firstly, Montreal's groundhogs still seem keen to get in on the F1 action. In the garages, McLaren's mechanics showed Lewis Hamilton that he's not the only one with new earrings. Lewis thankfully saw the funny side. And on the track, there have been plenty of incidents as everyone struggled for grip on a circuit that hasn't seen F1 action for 2 years. tyre graining and degradation was so severe, especially on the soft option tyre, that if it stays dry, we're likely to see the first 2 pit stop race of the season. It's an issue that has dominated the engineers' work going into qualifying and has proved especially worrying for the drivers.
They were sort of stopping the runs because they were saying it was dangerous after 7-8 laps. So that's a long way away from, you know, being able to do a one-stop race and do 35 laps on the soft tyre. So I'm sure we will see 2 stops and some people getting in trouble and maybe even more.
And finally, Fernando Alonso may have slipped down to 4th in the championship leaderboard, with he and teammate Massa racing the Renaults in Turkey. But Alonso's keeping the faith in Ferrari's ability to get back on terms in the development race and rediscover their early season form.
Performance will be better and better. This is a great team. This is a team that normally develops the car quicker than any other team. So I have no doubts that until Abu Dhabi we will be in the fight.
Lots of work indeed for Ferrari at the moment. Not that that's put the fans off. Just take a look behind us. I've heard the stories about the passion for Formula One in Canada. Obviously, these guys know all about it, but that is just incredible. Crowds everywhere, cameras out, and very knowledgeable about Formula One as well. And we can see inside Felipe Massa's garage there. Felipe Massa, new contract, longer than just 1 season. Would you have given him a long contract like that, Eddie?
Too early in the season to do that, I think, is a mistake. You need to make drivers hungry. It's the thing that drives them forward. And anyone who thinks that, you know, early contracts this time of the year is a good move, I'm not sure who wins out of it other than, you know, Massa.
I don't think it's a mistake, because the reality is, we saw with Michael, who had a contract to continue and then retired early, and also Kimi Räikkönen had another year of his contract, and he retired from Ferrari to make way for Fernando Alonso. So the fact they announced a 2-year deal doesn't really mean anything in Formula One. They can always cut it short if he doesn't perform.
Contracts, eh? Not what they used to be. Mark Webber, he's signed up. He's got another year at Red Bull after this season. How will that work with him psychologically, particularly with everything that's going on at the moment?
Well, ironically, that was agreed before the Turkey weekend. It just so happened that the decision was taken to announce it afterwards. So I think that Mark, as he mentioned in the pre-show piece that we had with him, he knows the team. He knows that after a few years together, you're going to have bad days as well as good days, and he's been part of building this team. So I think that's the right decision for him to continue.
Okay, well, you heard Ted there mentioning in the news that Ferrari have got to improve. They've got one of the greatest drivers in the sport, Fernando Alonso, and we had a little chat with him at Ferrari's headquarters.
Passion and the emotion that you feel driving for Ferrari, you are part of history. Spanish people and the Italians are quite similar.
And you like the food as well?
Yes, and the food is fantastic.
Oh yeah, okay. Turning off the traction.
Yes.
Your job is playing with Ferrari. It's very nice. When I said we had a chat, he drove fast. I looked scared and tried to think of a few questions if I managed it. But find out exactly what Fernando has to say tomorrow in our build-up to the Canadian Grand Prix. Lots of action on the track there at Fiorano, and lots of action possibly at the hairpin this afternoon. It's one of the most famous parts of the circuit. David Coulthard's got a photo actually in his study of him driving around that hairpin with the crowds standing on their feet cheering him. Now, if you press the red button today, then you can enjoy alternative commentary for the qualifying sessions. Just a reminder, if you miss anything, I know it's quite a busy weekend for sport, isn't it? Then, of course, for the next 7 days, the BBC iPlayer is right there for you. And bbc.co.uk/Formula One has all this. I'll do videos, pictures, tweet updates throughout the weekend and post an exclusive blog after each Grand Prix.
As well as the inside line from down here in the pit lane.
Send in your questions and we'll answer them.
It's not just about commentary, it's about being here, being in the middle of it.
Read my post-race Formula One reports.
bbc.co.uk/F1. There's loads on there, including a fair amount of Murray Walker as well. It's always good to get his thoughts after a Grand Prix. You can see the guys getting busy here, just starting to fire up the monitors on the Ferrari pit wall, preparing for today's qualifying session. And of course, it was Ferrari who Gilles Villeneuve was driving for when he picked up his first win in the inaugural race here in 1978. But from that to Lewis Hamilton's first win in Formula One just 3 years ago, this place has created some incredible memories and also ruined a few weekends. It's an incredibly unforgiving circuit, particularly for the 8 rookies taking to the track this afternoon.
Canada Circuit, Gilles Villeneuve, Montreal, 2.709 miles, downforce, low. Classic moment, Kubica's lucky escape, 2007.
I love coming back here. It's just a very nice atmosphere, very relaxed, and it's just a nice track.
It's a very technical track.
The first chicane and the second chicane are unique in terms of getting everything right to get in and out of those as quick as you can.
You've got to exit really close to the wall.
You need top speed, obviously. You need good braking, stability under braking through the bumps.
Hairpin, obviously, is a big stop, getting off there nice and clean.
And for sure, you need to have a lot of traction and really good top speed.
It's a very low grip track and a very low downforce track.
The conditions are going to play a big part this weekend, and there's a chance of rain on race day.
I reckon the circuit will be really slippery.
I like the circuit and I love the place. I think everybody likes the city and the atmosphere here.
I think very, very good for an exciting Grand Prix weekend.
Well, it's an incredibly tough place to make your debut in Formula One. David, in your first race here, though, you scored points.
Yeah, it was my second Grand Prix, and I finished 5th. And I remember that because of all the heavy braking here, I lost the feeling completely in my left foot, which was not the most pleasant, but anyway, it was nice to get the points.
OK, well, no pressure then on a couple of rookies who are getting involved in the racing this weekend. Karun Chandok, who drives for Hispania. Nice to see you, Karun, and Lucas de Grassi of the Virgin team. So, you've both had a couple of days to get used to this circuit. Tell us what it was like, first impressions when you headed out there.
Well, I've had one day, and I have to first of all say I don't like it when you guys come and talk to me before qualifying. So my car's in bits, as it is again now.
Are we your bad luck charm, are we?
Yeah, seem to be.
What's the problem?
We had a gearbox problem, so I missed the morning. I did 100 meters going off the pit lane, and we had a gearbox problem, so we'll have the 5-place penalty, unfortunately.
Listen, if anyone in Formula One is used to going out and qualifying without much time on track, I think you're that man.
That's what my engineer said, but... I mean, yesterday I was really surprised how low grip the circuit was. It's worse than Monaco FP1. The first lap I thought we had a power steering problem or something. It was just no feeling. It got a little bit better in the afternoon, but very, very low grip, and you could see the graining on the tyres. Everybody, not just us, but up and down the pit lane was worse than I've seen.
Lucas, in the morning we saw you have a small incident at the hairpin. Was something went on wrong during the braking phase there, or was it just driver error?
No, it was just I'm trying to push every time more and more, getting more used to the track. We've chosen a very, very low downforce setup for the car, so we're reaching up to 324 kilometers per hour down the straights. So I lost a little bit on the braking zone, but everything has been fixed and the car is ready to go.
We can see the moment that it happened, actually, here, right at the end of the session. Did you get some nasty looks from some of the other drivers? Because they were just on qualifying pace hot laps at the very end there, and you ruined that with the yellow flags.
Well, it's just pre-practice, really. They cannot complain so much. But the difficulty of this track is very low grip, and the walls are so close. So you really, really push to the limit. You every time less than 10 centimeters from the wall. So each small mistake costs you a crash.
What's the secret? Sorry, coming to you actually. What's the secret for a good qualifying lap?
Well, I think that it's changed a little bit since I raced here. We used to run very low downforce wings, but I noticed that, you mentioned you've got low downforce here, but I think that generally the teams are running more downforce because of the amount of fuel you've got to carry. The most fuel I ever had was 100 kilograms, but you've got...
Also the rules, you could change between Saturday and Sunday, I think, whereas now you're sort of restricted.
You're fixed, but you've got all that extra mass that you have to stop under braking. So for me, the biggest thing was really getting the car working well in the braking zones problems. And, you know, as you've mentioned, the middle sector, there's no room for error.
And also the top teams running the F-duct, that they can run maximum downforce during the corners and still have a very, very quick straight line speed, so we have the best of the both worlds.
Obviously, you've been passed a few times, both of you, during the races here. It's even more difficult here with the tight nature of the track. If you go offline, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, yesterday in FP2, I went offline to let Schumacher and Vettel pass. I just couldn't believe how low grip it is offline. It was literally just understeering off the circuit at walking space, you know, and it's going to be a tough race, I tell you. With I think there'll be safety cars and all sorts of stuff like you normally have around here.
Yeah, and if you've watched the videos from previous years, you'll see that you get this sort of micro marbles offline, and once you get into that, it can suck you right into the wall. So I'd be careful where you pull offline to let some of these guys through. I'd rather deal with the pain of them complaining than sitting there with a broken car.
There you go. Good advice, eh?
Yeah, definitely, we're going to do that.
Okay, finally, just get your thoughts on qualifying for today. It's very different here. It's a low downforce circuit, the first one of the year. How is the car feeling?
Well, for us, it's been, I think, the most difficult car I haven't driven this year, just because of this lack of downforce and the low grip of the track. So we're planning qualifying as usual, trying to just get to the limit, do the best as we can, and go for the race.
Karoon, will your car be built in time?
I hope so. I mean, I think we'll get one run, which is not ideal, having missed the morning, so, you know, not running the option tyre properly. I mean, it's a shame because I actually think we were racing other cars this weekend for the first time, you know, on pure pace. I think, you know, yesterday we were, you know, quite competitive, closer than we've been all season. So it's a real shame that we have the penalty, and, you know, hope we get some running, but it's looking tight.
OK, guys, we're just over a quarter of an hour to qualifying. Really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And these boys will both be listening to the team radios as they're told to get out of the way of some of the faster cars over this Grand Prix weekend. But it's not just the radios the teams use to speak to the drivers. Pit boards, they've been in Formula One forever, and they're as useful today as they've always been.
Formula One is famous for cutting-edge technology, but one device that's absolutely critical for team-to-driver communication has changed very little over the decades: the trusty pit board. Before pit-to-car radios, the pit board, shown at the very side of the racetrack, was the only way to inform a driver how the race was unfolding and to give other information. With the hostile environment of heat, rain and vibration, the car radios and crash helmet microphone and earpieces can and do fail. The pit board is totally reliable, providing, of course, the driver can see it. This is very difficult when close behind another car, on rainy days in heavy spray, or at high speed where the pit wall is far away, such as at Monza. Every lap, the car engineer updates the information with the pit board operator, who is often the driver's personal physio. Information can include laps to go, race position, gaps to cars in front and behind where relevant, pit stops, or instructions to alter settings on the steering wheel. A driver knows what information to expect on the board, and it becomes second nature to recognise and read. It's like subconsciously noticing road signs or checking mirrors while driving. The boards are now often used as props for a photo call after major successes, or even more serious matters. It's surprising that the latest boards are not digital or illuminated for the new night races, but they remain as simple and effective as ever. Sticking your head through the pit wall with a bunch of angry Formula One cars coming your way is quite a brave thing to do, but this is vital information.
Thank you very much, Martin. Keep your eyes on those pit bulls this weekend. I particularly enjoy Roger, who's Mark Webber's personal trainer, always leans over the wall and gives Roger a really good sort of, come on, let's keep going, Mark. Eddie, just chatted to a couple of rookies there with David. It's a tough place to come and drive Formula One cars around here, isn't it?
This is as tough as they come. You heard David talking about the sensation going out of his leg. That you can't possibly get across to the people how much braking is needed to be done, because it comes from a very high speed down to virtual hairpins, and it's very tough mentally and physically, particularly on the driver.
Yes, you can see David Coulthard behind us there, wishing Jackie Stewart a happy 71st birthday. The reason why David has nicked off is to find out what's going to be going on in the qualifying sessions, all the cars set up and the like, whereas Eddie and I are wandering down here, keeping our eyes peeled for some team bosses. We're going to track down Martin Whitmarsh, Ross Brawn and Christian Horner. What do you want to know from them, Eddie?
Do you think they're trembling in their boots?
Well, I think they are, yes.
I doubt
they look like it. Look, no, it looks all very friendly and very civil, actually, down there at the moment. What is it you want to know?
I just really want to have a chat with him about where Formula One is going, what's happening, why are there no decision on races in the calendar next year, why, for example, is the tyre decision not out in the open, and obviously we're not going to talk to them about team orders, or are we? Probably not.
I think we might mention it. We could always ask them a question about it, couldn't we? You can see actually how tight the paddock is here. It's interesting because this is almost like Formula One in the 1980s with this setup, isn't it? It's not pristine,
well, isn't
but
this
it's
healthy,
passionate,
isn't it fantastic? Because it's all tight. You're in this cauldron here, and everybody knows everyone else, and they're chatting, and they want to shake your hand, but they can't realise that we're still gamefully employed by the BBC. So we have to pay some attention and concentrate on what we're doing.
Yeah, no, of course we're doing. We're now making our way down here. You can see there the Vodafone McLaren Mercedes area here, and actually Red Bull Racing is where we're heading to. So if we can just push through the crowds here, we can have a chat to the guys. What we really want to know is how do they put the greater good of Formula One ahead of their own decisions and their own desires to help their team. So Eddie, if you follow on, I believe that they're somewhere in here, and you can see actually the throng of photographers and reporters all around them, and that's because, of course, two of these teams, McLaren and Red Bull, have been at the centre of the attention the last few races. Eddie, come and stand here next to me. There's no time for high fives. Martin, we've just been discussing with Eddie team orders in Formula One. David Coulthard says it's very difficult because you want to be in charge of your team. You want to help them out as much as possible. Where do you draw the line, though, between helping a team and team orders?
From a driver perspective or from the management's perspective?
I think from a management perspective, actually.
No, I think you want drivers to have the opportunity to race each other, and that's what we've always practiced. You don't want to go into self-destruct, and that's what we've seen. But it's a fine line, really.
Believe it or not, Martin, I'm going to steer away from team orders and that, so you'll be very much relieved. But I am really going to start with Ross. Ross, here we are, we're in Canada. How can you possibly start thinking about designing your new next year's car and not officially know what tyres it's going to be on and the circumstances and all the information that this new supplier is going to have to give to you? It must be very difficult.
It is difficult, but I think the teams are working in a very sensible way to limit the parameters around which we can design. For instance, we've all agreed to design to the same weight distribution next year, so the tyre can be made to suit a certain weight distribution. And we're producing a recommendation to tyre suppliers of the characteristics of the tyres that we want. So everybody's contributing to that document, which will be presented to a tyre supplier once it's agreed. And we can ask them in a combined way, all the teams, of what type of tyre we want. Given it's not a competitive field in terms of tyre companies competing, there's no reason a tyre company shouldn't then try and design the tyre that will be a good solution for all the teams.
When will we find out, Christian? What do you think? The tyre news, when will we be told?
Well, hopefully it can be resolved very shortly. I mean, we obviously rely heavily on our chairman of FOTA.
Is he the president or is he the chairman?
Well, it can be whatever you like, Eddie. But, hopefully between the teams, the commercial rights holder and the FIA, I think there's a pretty sensible deal that's on the table. Hopefully it can be resolved, very shortly.
I tackled you in the past, Martin, about this 55% reduction in aero. Now you have a chance for next year. Surely, as president or indeed chairman, whichever the greater is, and I'm sure you are that person, can you tell us how you're going to do something about it? Because it is time, you've got the time to do it, but the rules need to be set in place for the car. What reduction in aero is going to be for next year?
Well, again, I think the teams are working sensibly on that. One, they are reducing the downforce, and the twin diffusers that we know and love are disappearing next year, and I think that's an important initiative. The other one, of course, are the movable aerodynamic devices at the rear, the wings, and I think that's going to be providing we write the sporting regulations such that there's a proximity sensitivity. That means if you're following another car, you can use it. If you're leading, you can't use it to defend. I think that'll be quite exciting.
If I could, please, Jake, all three of you, one answer, please, yes or no. Team orders should be allowed or not?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
And why is it then that you do have team orders? If that is the answer.
Well, I think
you're saying no, but they are actually in a different guise. There are team orders.
There may have been in your team, Eddie.
Martin.
I don't know there was ever a problem in your team, but I don't think in our team there's any team orders.
Martin, I think please, me you're talking to, should there be team orders?
Well, I think we clearly demonstrated 2 weeks ago we didn't have any team orders, so...
you obviously hadn't heard me on the telly. Ross, should there be team orders? Because
we've
there are.
obviously applied team orders in the past, and we saw how unpopular that was. And it's a sport where we want to be entertaining and present the right image to the fans. So I don't think we should have team orders. The difficulty is clarity. what are team orders, what are not team orders. I mean, last week we asked our drivers to give a good gap in case it rains, so the pit stops could be organised more effectively. Now, that's not team orders because we're not advantaging one against the other. But, you know, people could interpret that way. So that's the difficulty we have, what's interpreted as team orders and what's not. And I think that was Martin's problem at the last race.
And I think that is as good an answer as you're going to get about team orders, Eddie. I know he could probably talk about them for another 25 minutes and maybe keep pushing you all on it. But I'm interested what you said there about entertaining the fans, keeping this a great product for the fans. You guys have got some of the greatest engineering brains in the world working for you. Why is it that between you all you can't sit down and perhaps have a slightly slower Formula, a slightly slower Formula One, but a Formula One that's entertaining, where we see overtaking, where we see dramatic, exciting racing on the track? Because the fans are wondering why this can't happen.
Well, I think the fans have watched the last 6 races, have had 6 stunning races, and I think there's been plenty of entertainment. It's not all about overtaking, it's about the prospect of overtaking, the uncertainty. At the last race, we had 4 cars for, 40 laps within 2 or 3 seconds. That was fantastically tense, there was real pressure there, mistakes were made, and I think that was entertaining. So we actually have had, I think, 6 great races of the 7 this year. We're working hard. We're reducing the downforce. We're doing things that will hopefully enhance entertainment next year.
It's part of the problem that this all comes down to everyone getting their heads together and making decisions, and it's very hard to put the good of the sport over the good of your own individual team.
I think nothing's bigger than the sport at the end of the day, and I think that you just got to be very careful that you don't cherry pick on certain things. I mean, arguably Turkey should have been one of the most aerodynamically sensitive tracks, yet the cars were able to follow each other very, very closely, and the racing was very strong there. And it's wrong to cherry pick on certain aspects that aren't necessarily going to make a big difference to the way that the cars race each other.
And finally, Ross, you're in charge of the technical working group. Are we going to have a great season next year? Are you working towards some regulations that are going to make this dramatic?
I think there's some good changes. I think what's exciting is this rear wing, which we can allow the driver to use to kill the drag. I mean, what's been clear with the F-duct this year is that you can have a manageable situation. It's going to be an enhanced F-duct where the car that's following will be allowed to reduce his drag to attack the car in front. And I think I'll give a lot more opportunity.
OK, guys, thank you very much for your time. And I think from all of us, Christian, congratulations on pole position once again today. I did that last week. I thought I'd do it on behalf of you guys as well. I bet. Thank you very much. Nice to chat to you all. Eddie, follow me. In the days when you were running Jordan, it was very rare, wasn't it, to get team bosses together like this, to be having a laugh and enjoying each other's company like that?
I think they're slightly on the back foot, aren't they? Because short fueling, which we probably will need to explain to the viewers, they're putting in less fuel in the car than it would normally take to race during the race weekend. And this, for me, is a form of controlling the situation, and I think that they probably need to address that. And I think those 3 are very sensible guys, and they will find a solution to it.
Were you watching that, David? What do you think of what the guys had to say?
Well, I was listening. Yeah, I think it is interesting. I think what Ross says is key to this. You know, what constitutes a team order, and I think that transparency for the public is the most important thing, because we want to know what we're actually seeing. But it's a very difficult situation for them. As we talked before the show, it's almost like asking Alex Ferguson to watch this first 11 against the second team in the FA Cup final. Who can he pick? Which one of the teams does he want to win? Because they're both part of his family. So it's very difficult for these team principals. OK, now it's a big weekend in France as well for motorsport this weekend. It's Le Mans. We can see the start just now. Now, it all looked like a good start for everybody, but the bad news is that Nigel Mansell sadly had rather a large accident. The latest news that we have on Nigel's condition is that he's been taken to the local hospital. A fantastic racing weekend. Thankfully, Nigel's injuries aren't thought to be serious, but it's just a reminder that, motorsport is dangerous, David. It is indeed. It says it on the ticket. And, Le Mans, what a great event this is. I raced there once in '93, as we see Nigel here going towards the Armco. The actual impact doesn't look that bad, and I'd be interested to know exactly what it was that meant that he needed to be carried from the car. But anyway, never nice to see someone have an incident, as we see his son there in the garage, and a very short Le Mans 24-hour for him.
And Anthony Davidson, our 5 Live summariser, is currently sitting second. Fantastic.
Well, I don't know. He's obviously slipped, because we heard he was leading for a while. He's going to be right there. I mean, in fact, arguably, he should be here racing in Formula One. He's that good. And let's hope he does do well.
Absolutely. Right, we've covered just about everything so far today. What we haven't yet got our teeth into is qualifying. But it's now time for the first part of qualifying with Martin Brundle and Jonathan Ledgard.